Please, just dance with me. My ex is here," she whispered, burying her face into the lapel of a stranger's bespoke Tom Ford suit. She just wanted to hide. She had no idea she was using the most dangerous crime boss in New York City as her human shield. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a sea of glittering diamonds, clinking crystal flutes of Dom Perignon, and the suffocating scent of old money. Chloe Harrington stood near the edge of the dance floor, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her champagne glass. She was a public relations manager for a mid-tier boutique, invited only because her boss had caught a sudden flu. She felt entirely out of place in her rented Badgley Mishka gown, surrounded by the city's elite billionaires, politicians, and socialites. But feeling out of place was nothing compared to the ice-cold dread that suddenly paralyzed her spine. The heavy mahogany doors at the entrance of the ballroom had just swung open, and the photographer's flashes went off like rapid gunfire. Walking through the archway, looking like he owned the building, was Derek Channing. Chloe's breath hitched. Her stomach plummeted into a bottomless abyss. Derek, the man who had spent 3 years of her life promising her the world, only to systematically drain her bank accounts for his tech startup before abandoning her with a broken lease and crippling debt. It had been 8 months since he walked out of their cramped Brooklyn apartment. Now, here he was, wearing a pristine tuxedo, his arm wrapped possessively around the waist of Serena Sterling, the heiress to a massive real estate empire. Chloe felt the walls of the sprawling ballroom shrinking. Panic, hot and humiliating, flared in her chest. She watched as Derek laughed, that same arrogant, charming laugh that used to make her weak in the knees, leaning in to kiss Serena's cheek. He looked successful. He looked happy. He looked like he hadn't left Chloe to pick up the shattered pieces of her entire existence. I can't let him see me, Chloe thought, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Not like this. Not alone. Hiding in a corner like a pathetic loser. She needed to get to the exit, but the only way out was across the marble foyer, directly past Derek's line of sight. As if sensing her gaze, Derek turned his head slightly toward her side of the room. Blind panic took over. Chloe spun around, desperate to blend into the crowd, to disappear into the throngs of dancing couples. She took 3 rapid steps backward, not looking where she was going, and slammed directly into what felt like a solid wall of granite. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," Chloe gasped, stumbling. A strong, unyielding hand caught her elbow, steadying her instantly. The grip was firm, almost possessive, and surprisingly warm. "Careful," a voice rumbled. It was deep, resonant, and completely devoid of the forced politeness typical of high society galas. It was a voice that commanded absolute attention. Chloe looked up, and the breath was knocked out of her lungs all over again. The man standing before her was striking, but not in the polished, overly groomed way of the investment bankers filling the room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and exuded an aura of quiet, terrifying authority. His dark hair was immaculately styled, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass, but it was his eyes that froze her in place. They were a piercing, stormy grey, cold and calculating, currently analyzing her with the precision of a predator sizing up prey. He wore a charcoal black tuxedo that screamed custom tailoring, and the heavy platinum Patek Philippe watch on his wrist caught the light of the chandeliers. Normally, Chloe would have offered a stammering apology and fled. But out of the corner of her eye, she saw Derek and Serena moving toward the champagne fountain, closing the distance. They were less than 30 feet away. If Derek saw her, he would undoubtedly come over. He loved to gloat. He loved to twist the knife. She couldn't face him. She just couldn't. Driven by sheer, unadulterated desperation, Chloe closed the distance between herself and the intimidating stranger. She stepped directly into his personal space, her hands trembling as she reached up and grabbed the lapels of his immaculate suit. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking with unshed tears and humiliation. "Please." Just dance with me. My ex is here and I just can't let him see me alone. For a fraction of a second, the grey eyes widened in genuine surprise. It was a micro-expression, gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced immediately by an unreadable mask. The muscles beneath his suit jacket tensed. To anyone else in the room, a woman grabbing this particular man would have been a death sentence. He looked down at her small hands, gripping his lapels, then back up to her panicked, pleading eyes. "Your ex," the man repeated, his voice low, a hint of dark amusement lacing the words. "You are using me as a shield to avoid a bad breakup? I know it's insane," Chloe choked out, keeping her face turned away from the crowd, burying it slightly into his shoulder so her profile was hidden. He smelled incredible, a mix of cedar, expensive bergamot, and something distinctly metallic and dangerous. "I'll owe you. I'll buy you a drink. Just pretend you know me for 3 minutes. Please." A heavy silence stretched between them. The string quartet in the center of the room began to play a slow, sweeping waltz. Then, slowly, the stranger's hand moved from her elbow, sliding smoothly down her arm until his large fingers intertwined with hers. His other hand settled firmly against the small of her back, the heat of his palm radiating through the thin silk of her dress. 3 minutes, he murmured. His voice a dark velvet purr. "But I don't drink cheap champagne, sweetheart. You're going to owe me much more than that." Before Chloe could process the weight of his words, he swept her onto the polished marble of the dance floor. He moved with a lethal, fluid grace that belied his massive frame. Chloe was a decent dancer, but she didn't have to do any work. The stranger led her with absolute, unquestionable dominance. He pulled her close, closer than polite society dictated for strangers, pressing her body against the hard lines of his. "Breathe," he ordered softly, his lips brushing dangerously close to her ear. "If you look like a terrified rabbit, you're going to draw his attention anyway. Smile at me." Chloe swallowed hard, forcing her rigid muscles to relax. She tilted her head up and managed a shaky, unconvincing smile. "Thank you. I'm Chloe, by the way." "Gabriel," he replied, his gaze locked onto hers. He didn't offer a last name. "Now, Chloe, tell me, which one of these impeccably dressed fools is the man who reduced you to shaking in my arms?" Chloe hesitated, but Gabriel's hand pressed a little firmer against her lower back, a silent command. She shifted her gaze slightly over his shoulder. "By the ice sculpture," she murmured. "The blonde man in the navy tuxedo, with the woman in the red dress." Gabriel smoothly rotated them, his stormy grey eyes flicking toward the target. Chloe watched his expression change. The dark amusement vanished, replaced by a cold, clinical calculation. It was the look of a man evaluating a threat and finding it entirely pathetic. "Derek Channing," Gabriel said. It wasn't a question. Chloe gasped, missing a step. Gabriel caught her seamlessly, lifting her slightly to keep the rhythm. "You know him?" "I know everyone in this city who handles money," Gabriel said dismissively. "He's a junior VP at Vanguard Capital, a bottom feeder in a very large pond." "Why are you hiding from a bottom feeder, Chloe?" He ruined me," Chloe admitted, the shame burning her cheeks. "He took my savings, left me in debt. I just didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me alone, struggling to afford a rented dress while he's living the high life." Gabriel's eyes darkened, a storm brewing in the grey depths. "A thief and a coward," he murmured. "A dangerous combination, but a highly punishable one." "It doesn't matter," Chloe said quickly, wanting to drop the subject. "He didn't see me. As soon as the song ends, I'll sneak out the service elevator." "No, you won't," Gabriel stated, his tone brooking no argument. "You don't run from men like him. It only encourages them." Before Chloe could ask what he meant, the worst-case scenario unfolded. Derek had turned away from the ice sculpture. His eyes swept the dance floor. And suddenly, he stopped. Chloe saw the exact moment recognition dawned on his face. She saw the malicious smirk curl his lips. He tapped Serena's shoulder, whispered something in her ear, and began walking purposefully toward the center of the dance floor. He saw me, Chloe whispered, panic rising again. Gabriel, he's coming over. Let him, Gabriel replied, not breaking his stride, not releasing his hold on her. Keep your chin up. Do not look away. Derek weaved through the dancing couples, coming to a halt right next to them. He stood with his hands in his pockets, looking Chloe up and down with barely concealed contempt. Chloe? Derek said loudly, drawing the attention of a few nearby couples. Well, I'll be damned. I didn't expect to see you at the plaza. How did you even get in? Did you max out another credit card just to buy a ticket to the charity raffle? Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but no words came out. The humiliation was suffocating. But before she could speak, Gabriel stopped dancing. He didn't step back. He didn't release Chloe. He simply turned his head, looking down at Derek with an expression of such absolute, freezing disdain that the temperature in the immediate vicinity seemed to drop 10 degrees. And who might you be? Gabriel asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a deadly, resonant weight. Derek puffed out his chest, completely oblivious to the danger standing in front of him. I'm Derek Channing. I'm an old friend of Chloe's. Just surprised to see her swimming in the deep end. You must be her date. Let me guess. She hasn't told you about her little financial struggles. Gabriel's eyes narrowed into slits. Channing. Vanguard Capital. Your firm manages the offshore accounts for the Sterling family. Does it not? Derek blinked, thrown off by the sudden pivot to business. Yes. We do. I handle I don't care what you handle. Gabriel cut him off, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly quiet register. What I care about is why a junior employee with a habit of defrauding women is currently interrupting my dance, especially when that employee's firm relies heavily on the good graces of my associates. Derek frowned, a hint of unease finally piercing his arrogance. Listen, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but my name is Gabriel Mercer, he said simply. It was as if someone had physically struck Derek. The color instantly vanished from his face, leaving him a sickening shade of grey. His arrogant posture collapsed, his shoulders hunching defensively. The glass of champagne in his hand began to tremble, liquid sloshing over the crystal rim. Chloe looked back and forth between them, utterly bewildered. She knew the name, Mercer, carried weight in New York, but she didn't understand the sheer terror it had just evoked in her ex-boyfriend. Mr. Mercer, Derek stammered, his voice suddenly an octave higher. I apologize. I didn't realize. I meant no disrespect. You are currently breathing my air. Channing, Gabriel said, his tone devoid of any emotion. And you are distressing my partner. If I see you in this ballroom in the next 60 seconds, I will make a single phone call. Tomorrow morning, you won't just be out of a job at Vanguard. You will be entirely unemployable in any city that has a bank. Am I understood? Derek swallowed hard, bobbing his head frantically. Yes. Yes, sir. I'm leaving. Right now. He didn't even look at Chloe. He spun on his heel, practically sprinting back to Serena, grabbing her arm and dragging the bewildered heiress toward the coat check. Chloe stood frozen on the dance floor, her jaw slightly slack. The entire exchange had taken less than a minute, but the shift in power had been absolute. How? How did you do that? Chloe whispered, staring at Gabriel in a completely new light. The man she was holding on to wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in a way she couldn't comprehend. Gabriel looked down at her, the terrifying mask melting away, replaced once again by that dark, captivating amusement. I simply reminded him of his place in the food chain, Chloe. He raised a hand slightly, making a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture toward the shadows of the ballroom. Instantly, two massive men in tailored suits, men who clearly weren't guests, given the earpieces discreetly tucked into their ears, stepped out from behind a marble pillar, their eyes fixed on Gabriel, waiting for a command. "Adrian, Jude," Gabriel said quietly as the men approached. "Ensure Mr. Channing finds the exit. If he lingers, assist him." "Yes, boss." The older of the two, Adrian, rumbled before turning and marching toward the lobby with terrifying purpose. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. "Boss." She looked at Gabriel Mercer, truly looking at him now. The custom suit, the expensive watch, the men who materialized out of the shadows to do his bidding, the way the crowd naturally gave them a wide berth on the dance floor. She hadn't just used a rich CEO as a shield. She had just tethered herself to the apex predator of New York's underworld. "Now," Gabriel said, his hand sliding up her back to gently trace the line of her spine, sending a shiver through her entire body. "I believe you promised to buy me a drink, and I think we have a lot to talk about." The air in the private, mahogany-paneled VIP lounge of the plaza felt heavier than the ballroom outside. The heavy velvet curtains muted the sounds of the string quartet, replacing the sweeping waltz with the low, ambient hum of raw power. Chloe sat on a tufted leather Chesterfield sofa, her hands trembling so violently that the ice in her crystal glass of sparkling water clinked against the sides. Gabriel Mercer sat opposite her, an untouched glass of Macallan 25, resting on the low mahogany table between them. He had unbuttoned his tuxedo jacket, projecting a relaxed elegance that was entirely at odds with the sheer terror currently coursing through Chloe's veins. "You're shaking, Chloe," Gabriel observed, his voice a low, soothing baritone that somehow made things worse. You're a mobster," she blurted out, unable to filter her thoughts. The realization had hit her the moment they walked past the velvet ropes, the bouncers stepping aside with expressions of absolute, terrified reverence. Gabriel leaned back, crossing one long leg over the other. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched the corner of his mouth. "I prefer the term unregulated venture capitalist. Mobster implies a lack of sophistication. I run a highly structured international logistics and holding corporation. The fact that my competitors occasionally disappear is simply aggressive market correction." Chloe swallowed dryly. "And what does an unregulated venture capitalist want with a broke PR manager? Normally?" "Absolutely nothing," Gabriel replied, picking up his glass and swirling the amber liquid. "However, your ex-boyfriend, the spectacularly incompetent Derek Channing, has made you my business." Chloe frowned, confusion briefly overriding her fear. "Derek? What does Derek have to do with you? I told you he just stole my savings for his fake startup." Gabriel's storm-grey eyes locked onto hers, all traces of amusement vanishing. The air in the room grew ice-cold. "Derek didn't just steal from you, Chloe. He stole your identity. Tell me, do you remember signing a stack of documents for that tech startup of his about 14 months ago? Documents he claimed were just standard non-disclosure agreements for his investors?" Chloe's stomach plummeted. "Yes. He said I needed to be listed as an administrative consultant so he could use our apartment as a registered home office. He lied," Gabriel stated flatly. "He registered 3 offshore shell companies under your name, your social security number, your signature." "Why?" Chloe whispered, feeling the blood drain from her face. "Because a month ago, Vanguard Capital, Derek's firm, was tasked with laundering $12 million of my money through clean real estate acquisitions. Gabriel explained. His tone conversational, as if discussing the weather and not massive financial crimes. But there was a discrepancy. $4 million vanished before it reached the escrow accounts. My accountants tracked the missing funds to a Cayman Island account registered to a Chloe Harrington. The glass slipped from Chloe's fingers, tumbling onto the plush Persian rug and spilling sparkling water over the intricate woven patterns. She couldn't breathe. A Cayman Islands account. He framed me, she gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Oh my God. He framed me. If you were looking for the money, you would have found my name. You would have come after me. My men were scheduled to pay you a visit tomorrow morning. Actually, Gabriel said mildly, finding you literally throwing yourself into my arms on the dance floor tonight was a fascinating twist of fate. It saved Adrian a trip to Brooklyn. Chloe looked at the massive bodyguard, standing silently by the lounge door. Adrian gave her a polite, chilling nod. I don't have the money, Chloe pleaded, tears finally spilling over her lashes. I swear to you, Mr. Mercer, I have a negative balance in my checking account. I'm 3 months behind on rent. He took everything. Please, you have to believe me. Gabriel reached across the table, his large hand gently catching a tear that fell down her cheek. His touch was shockingly gentle. I know. Chloe, if I thought you were a thief, you wouldn't be sitting here drinking sparkling water. My investigators have been monitoring your life for a week. We know about the overdue bills. We know you rent your clothes. We know Derek is the architect of this theft. He thinks he's clever. Hiding my money in his desperate ex-girlfriend's name, planning to leave you holding the bag when I inevitably came looking for it. Anger, hot and blinding, suddenly pierced through Chloe's terror. Derek hadn't just abandoned her. He had offered her up as a sacrificial lamb to one of the most dangerous men in New York. He had sentenced her to death just to line his own pockets. I want to ruin him, she whispered, the words surprising even herself. She looked up, her eyes flashing with a sudden, fierce fire. I want to watch him lose everything. Gabriel's smile returned, sharp and predatory. Now we are speaking the same language. Derek Channing needs to be made an example of. But I cannot simply pull him off the street. His sudden disappearance right now would trigger an SEC audit of Vanguard, freezing my remaining legitimate assets. No, he needs to undo the transfer himself, willingly. How? By convincing him that you are fully aware of the Cayman account and that you have the power to liquidate it, Gabriel said. He thinks you are a naive, broken woman hiding in the shadows. We are going to show him something entirely different. We are going to make him desperate. Gabriel stood up, walking around the table to stand over her. He offered his hand. Work with me, Chloe. Play the part I give you. Help me corner the rat. In exchange, I wipe your debts. I ensure Derek is permanently eradicated from the financial world, and you walk away with $1 million of clean, untraceable cash. Chloe looked at his outstretched hand. It was a deal with the devil. But as she thought about Derek, smirking on the dance floor with Serena Sterling, while Chloe was marked for death, she knew there was only one choice. She placed her hand in Gabriel's. When do we start? The transformation took less than 48 hours. Chloe Harrington, the struggling PR manager who lived off ramen noodles and anxiety, ceased to exist. In her place stood a woman who looked like she breathed pure wealth. Gabriel's team of stylists had descended upon her apartment, throwing away her fast-fashion wardrobe. She was now dressed in a tailored ivory silk blazer from Alexander McQueen, her hair blown out into sleek, intimidating waves, a Cartier Panthère watch weighing down her left wrist. Remember the narrative, Gabriel said quietly, adjusting his cuffs as they sat in the back of his armored Maybach. They were pulling up to Le Bernardin, one of the most exclusive and heavily booked restaurants in Midtown Manhattan. You discovered the Cayman accounts last week. You realized the leverage you held. You used a fraction of the funds to upgrade your lifestyle. And you reached out to a private equity investor Me to help you wash the rest of it. He's going to panic, Chloe said, staring out the tinted windows. Her heart was racing, but the paralyzing fear was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp adrenaline. Panic makes men stupid, Gabriel replied, his gaze intensely focused on her. He reached out to you this morning because my men froze his access to the Vanguard routing numbers. He knows the money is stuck. He needs your signature to authorize the transfer. The Maybach rolled to a stop. Adrian opened the door, and Gabriel offered Chloe his arm. They walked into the Michelin-starred restaurant, the maitre d' practically bowing as he escorted them to a secluded, private booth in the back corner. 10 minutes later, Derek arrived. He looked entirely different from the arrogant man at the plaza 2 nights ago. His suit was wrinkled, there were dark circles under his eyes, and his hands were jittery. When he spotted Chloe sitting beside Gabriel Mercer, he froze, a look of sheer, unadulterated horror crossing his face. "Sit, Channing," Gabriel commanded, not raising his voice. Derek collapsed into the chair opposite them. He looked at Chloe, taking in the designer clothes, the immaculate styling, the Cartier watch. His jaw clenched. "What is this, Chloe?" Derek hissed, keeping his voice low, glancing nervously at the waiters. "What are you doing with him?" "Having lunch," Chloe said smoothly, taking a sip of her Sancerre. She channeled every ounce of Gabriel's cold detachment. "You've been calling my phone incessantly since 6:00 a.m., Derek. It's quite pathetic." Serena wouldn't approve. Derek's face flushed red. "Cut the crap. You know why I'm calling. The Cayman account? You logged in. You changed the security protocols." "Of course I did," Chloe lied flawlessly, placing her glass down. "Did you honestly think I wouldn't notice a company registered in my name holding $4 million? You left a paper trail a mile wide in our old apartment." Derek leaned forward, his veneer of civility cracking. "You stupid bitch," he snarled, his voice trembling with rage. "You don't know what you're messing with. That money belongs to dangerous people. If you don't authorize the release right now, they will kill us both." Beside her, Gabriel let out a soft, dark chuckle. The sound made Derek flinch. "He's referring to me, Chloe," Gabriel said mildly, cutting into his sea base. "He is trying to frighten you with my reputation." Derek looked at Gabriel, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. "Mr. Mercer, I was protecting your assets. She's crazy. She hijacked the account." "Stop talking, Derek," Gabriel interrupted, his voice dropping to that lethal, freezing register. "You are insulting my intelligence, and worse, you are raising your voice at my partner. We know exactly what you did. You attempted to skim $4 million from my syndicate, using Chloe as your fall guy." Derek visibly shrank in his chair. "I can fix it. I just need her signature on the digital release forms. I have them on my phone. Please, Mr. Mercer, just make her sign, and you'll have your money back." Gabriel set his silver fork down. "The money was never the issue, Channing. $4 million is a rounding error in my quarterly margins. The issue is disrespect. You used my funds to play games. You endangered someone I now consider under my protection." He glanced at Chloe, the intensity in his grey eyes making her breath hitch. "I'll do anything," Derek begged, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "Just tell me what you want." "I want a full confession," Gabriel said smoothly. "I want you to verbally confirm, right now, that you embezzled the funds from Vanguard Capital, bypassing their internal audits, and intended to steal from my organization. I want the exact routing numbers you used, and the names of your accomplices within the firm." Derek hesitated. "If I say that, if there's a recording, I'll go to federal prison for 20 years. Gabriel leaned across the table, the aura of a predator fully unleashed. "If you do not say it, Derek, You will not live long enough to see the sunset. The choice is yours. A federal cell or a foundation in one of Serena Sterling's new high-rises. Choose quickly. I have dessert arriving. Derek looked at Chloe, his eyes pleading. Chloe, please. We were together for 3 years. You loved me. Don't let him do this to me. Chloe looked at the man who had ruined her credit, destroyed her self-esteem, and set her up to be murdered by the Mafia. She felt absolutely nothing but contempt. You should start talking, Derek, Chloe said coldly. Mr. Mercer hates to wait. Defeated, broken, and shivering uncontrollably, Derek reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small black notebook, and began to speak. He outlined every fraudulent transfer, every forged signature, and every bypassed security measure at Vanguard. He confessed to framing Chloe, admitting it was a premeditated plan from the day he asked her to sign the fake NDA. As Derek babbled his confession to the discreet recording device sitting in Gabriel's breast pocket, Chloe felt a massive, suffocating weight lift off her chest. She was free. Her debt was going to be wiped. Derek was going to be destroyed. But as she looked sideways at Gabriel Mercer, watching the dark, calculating satisfaction in his stormy grey eyes, she realized one terrifying truth. She might be free of Derek, but she was now entirely bound to the devil himself, and she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to leave. Adrian, Gabriel said softly, not breaking eye contact with the weeping, shattered man across the table. The massive bodyguard stepped forward from the shadows of the restaurant, plucking the black notebook from Derek's trembling hands and smoothly sliding the recording device from Gabriel's breast pocket. Take Mr. Channing to the service exit, Gabriel instructed, his voice as casual as if he were ordering an espresso. I believe Special Agent Miller from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division is waiting in a black Suburban in the alleyway. An anonymous tip regarding massive corporate fraud at Vanguard Capital was phoned in an hour ago. Make sure the agent receives the tape and the ledger. Derek's head snapped up, his eyes bloodshot. The FBI? You said I had a choice. I said you had a choice between a federal cell or a foundation in a high-rise, Gabriel corrected coldly. I am simply facilitating the choice you made. Consider it an act of mercy. If my associates in the syndicate got to you first, you would be praying for a federal prison. Adrian clamped a hand the size of a dinner plate onto Derek's shoulder, hoisting him out of the chair with terrifying ease. Derek didn't fight. The fight had been completely drained out of him. He was practically dragged out of the dining room. A pathetic, whimpering shell of the arrogant man who had flaunted his wealth at the plaza just 2 nights prior. Silence descended upon the private booth, broken only by the gentle clinking of silverware from the main dining room. Chloe let out a long, shaky exhale. Her hands were gripping the edge of the tablecloth so tightly her knuckles were white. It was over. The nightmare that had consumed her life for 8 months had been extinguished in less than 30 minutes. Breathe, Chloe, Gabriel murmured. He reached across the table, his warm, rough fingertips brushing over her knuckles, coaxing her hands to relax. The touch sent an involuntary jolt of electricity straight up her arm. She looked into his stormy grey eyes, finding that the cold, predatory gaze he had directed at Derek was gone, replaced by a dark, intense warmth. Is he really going to prison? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, with a recorded confession and the physical ledger detailing the routing numbers. Yes, Gabriel assured her. Vanguard will throw him to the wolves to save their own PR, and Serena Sterling's family will bury him in civil litigation to distance themselves from the scandal. Derek Channing is erased. Gabriel stood up, tossing a few crisp $100 bills onto the table for the untouched lunch, and offered her his hand. Come, we have one last piece of business to conclude. They rode in silence to the Baccarat Hotel and Residences, where Gabriel's private elevator whisked them up to a sprawling 2-story penthouse overlooking the breathtaking expanse of Central Park. The walls were adorned with genuine Rothko paintings, and the furniture screamed of an impossible, untouchable wealth. Gabriel led her to a sleek, black marble wet bar and poured 2 glasses of 20-year-old Pappy Van Winkle bourbon. He handed her one, then picked up a slim silver tablet resting on the counter. He tapped the screen a few times and slid it toward her. Chloe looked down. It was a secure banking portal for HSBC. The screen displayed a newly opened offshore account registered to a newly established LLC. The balance was exactly $1 million. Your debts have been quietly paid off this morning through a shell corporation, Gabriel said, leaning against the marble counter, watching her intently. Your credit is spotless, and that account is yours. Clean, untraceable, and legally ironclad. Chloe stared at the zeros. $1 million. Yesterday, she was rationing subway fare. Today, she was wealthy enough to vanish and start over anywhere in the world. She should have felt ecstatic. She should have been running for the door. But as she looked up at Gabriel, at the sharp cut of his jaw, the raw power radiating from his frame, and the terrifying, intoxicating way he looked at her, she felt a heavy, sinking anchor in her chest. "I'm free," she said, though it sounded more like a question. "You are," Gabriel agreed, taking a slow sip of his bourbon. "You played your part flawlessly. You have your money. You can walk out of those elevator doors, move to Paris, start your own PR firm, and never see me again." Chloe swallowed hard. She placed the tablet down on the marble. The silence in the penthouse was deafening. "And what if I don't want to go to Paris?" A slow, dangerously magnetic smile spread across Gabriel's face. He set his glass down and closed the distance between them, stepping so deep into her personal space that she could feel the heat radiating off his body. He reached up, his thumb gently tracing the line of her jaw, sending a shiver cascading down her spine. "Then we have a different conversation," he murmured, his voice dropping to that dark velvet purr that made her pulse race. "I have just orchestrated a massive restructuring of my legitimate holding companies, Mercer Global. I require a director of communications, someone sharp, ruthless, and entirely unflappable under pressure. Someone who doesn't flinch when the sharks start circling." His hand slid to the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her sleek hair, tilting her head up so she was forced to look directly into his eyes. "But I must warn you, Chloe," Gabriel whispered, his face inches from hers. "If you stay, there is no stepping back. You have seen the monster in the dark. If you take my hand this time, you are stepping into my world permanently. And I do not let what is mine go." It was a warning, a promise, a velvet trap. Chloe thought of her old life, the fear, the weakness, the constant struggle to survive in a city that wanted to chew her up. Then she looked at the man who had effortlessly bent New York to his will just to protect her. He was dangerous. He was lethal. He was the Mafia. But he was also the safest place she had ever been. Chloe reached up, her hands sliding over the lapels of his custom suit, mirroring the exact way she had grabbed him on the dance floor 2 nights ago. But this time, she wasn't hiding. "I don't flinch, Gabriel," she whispered, her eyes burning with a fierce, newly awakened fire. "I think you and I are going to make a lot of money." Gabriel's eyes darkened with raw hunger. He didn't say another word as he captured her lips in a bruising, possessive kiss, sealing the contract and dragging her completely, willingly, into the beautiful, terrifying dark. What did you think of Chloe's dangerous decision? Did she make the right choice by stepping into the shadows with Gabriel? Or is she playing with a fire that will ultimately consume her? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this thrilling mafia romance, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more intense, real-life drama stories.